What's wrong with the world? I am. In a book by Dr. Cindy Trim, History Makers Arise and Take Your Place in Leading Change, she asks this question. And at first, when I read that, I thought, how am I what's wrong with the world? But wait, how am I part of the problem with what's wrong with the world? That's a deeply self-reflective question. And before I move forward, I want you all to stop this video and I want you to ponder that for yourself and ask yourself that question. When I did, I discovered several things. One was my desire of wanting to be right more than anything in the world. Being on the right side of history. And as I really thought more and more about it, I realized that I don't think that there's a right or wrong side of history. There's just history, and we are all a part of it. It is all shaped by our perspective on what we think right or wrong is. I just heard someone say the other day that when you're young, history shapes you. And when you're older, you shape history. Think about that. This told me a lot about how we are viewing ourselves when it comes to social values, politics, religion, moral ethics, power, and greed. Now, of course, there are those bad actors out there that are intentionally hurting and oppressing others for their own personal profit and gain. This has always been the case throughout mankind. But I think that we make our arguments of wanting to be right more about making the other person wrong, instead of turning that lens around and looking at ourselves. It's not as easy. Now, this is not to say that we want to ignore what's going on and respond passively. This just means that our response may not require the same actions that we've been taking time and time again throughout history. Listen, I've worked for multiple organizations within them and as a consultant. I have been in the social justice field for quite some time. I am civically engaged in my community, and I've studied social issues, human issues, psychology, and really looked at how these systemic issues we face, although they present themselves as this massive machine, this machine was created by man. And yet with all of these uprisings and protesting and charity work and money being thrown at issues, growing nonprofits every day that are being started, nothing is improving. Why do you think that is? How is it that in the most technologically advanced and wealthy country in the world, we have a growing wealth gap, we have lower educational standards, we have more people living in poverty and a growing homelessness issue, we have sickness and disease springing up all over the place, not to mention the violence and the trauma and the mental health issues. And yet with all of this, we can easily point our fingers at who we think is responsible for all of this. And I and you, we could spend our lives fighting this good fight while at the same time becoming jaded and burnt out, or even worse, apathetic. I believe it's time for a social upgrade, a different way of thinking about solving these issues. And this is actually a space for those of us that look around, want to do something. We don't want to be on the extreme side of things. We're not ready to put ourselves out there, but we certainly don't want to not do anything. And we're trying to figure out, well, what is my role? What can I do? Before I share my thoughts with you about this, I want to share, I want you to share with me actually, what you think a social upgrade would look like for us, for this country, right? Starting with yourself, how would you solve an old problem in a new way? And before I move on, I have to give props to my co-facilitator in workshops that we've been doing together, Beverly. She was the one that came up with this term. Someone else might have said it before, but I really got it from her. As I was trying to find the right words for looking at a social shift, and looking at how people think about social issues and solving them. And so when she said social upgrade, I really just latched on to that and had a discussion with her a little bit more around the definition for that. And so I want to thank her for that contribution. And before I end and you guys, answer this first question for me so we could really start some engagement here. I just want you to know, I know a lot of you have been following me for quite some time, and you know where I stand on issues and where my belief system is. But I also want you to know I am challenging my thoughts around things as I am in the social justice field and I'm working with social issues. I'm looking at what can be changed and what can be different and how we can do this in such a way to where we don't destroy our country and we don't destroy our way of life and one another. And so I think that this requires being, self-aware, being self-reflective. And I hope that you all are willing to do that with me during this journey. And I hope that you will open yourselves up to this experience and see what comes out of this. Let's just accept this as an exploratory journey that we're going to take together and see what evolves. So I will see you on the next video.